It's Romy from Tax Accounting Adelaide. Just a bit of an update on the budget last night, the federal budget. So some exciting news for us, obviously, big changes in terms of the election coming up. So obviously tried to be generous in giving us some ways to keep the government in government. So you may recall there was for 2 or 3 years now we've had what's called a low and middle income tax offset. A lot of people just referring it as a tax cut. It was 1,080. They introduced it to be 1,500 for the next tax return that you'll do, the 2022 tax return. So something to look out for that. But the only bad news is that maybe it's last year's legislated to continue after the 22 tax return. No changes to personal tax rates. You may know that they are already in place to be reducing the next scale of tax cuts are scheduled for 2025. There is going to be a change to pay-as-you-go instalment options for businesses, so that they can be aligned to what their accounting softwares are saying. So superannuation pensioners, there's a continuation of the 50% reduction in the minimum annual payment amounts for your withdrawals or pensions. That's extending for a further year for 2023. So next financial year after this one finishing now as well. The government didn't say anything about changes to the super guarantee rate, which is scheduled to increase from 10 to 10.5%, starting from the 1st of July 2022. You've probably heard this one, but the big news has been that there's going to be a fuel excise temporary reduction. So your petrol prices, the fuel excess in that is going to be reduced by the government about 50%. I understand it's about 40 cents, so it'll be about a 20-cent reduction. Your fuel per litre. And that will begin immediately, but it will just take fuel stations will have to empty what they've currently got and buy a new one before the new prices will come. And that will stay for 6 months. So enjoy that 6 months while that's happening. It probably will go pretty quickly anyway, but there's also been a $250 cost of living payment given to pensioners, welfare recipients, veterans and concession card holders. National security measures have been put in place. Also health, there's been 547 million targeted for mental health and suicide prevention initiatives, which is great to hear. 331 million to promote health of women and girls, including supporting National Women's Health Strategy, which is a great government as well. Changes to the parental paid leave scheme, giving access to 20 weeks leave in ways to suit their specific circumstances. So family people may be affected there. Disaster support given to New South Wales and Queensland, 6 billion. So that's great of government to do that. There's talk about the government being in debt. All the COVID, pandemics and disasters Australia's been having, pretty understandable. Infrastructure, so 18 billion committed to road, rail and community infrastructure works, which is great. And yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed my little rundown of some of the changes to the budget. Thank you, and shout out if you've got any questions or any advice. Thank you. Bye. Bye from Texas.